It's times like this where I really question game reviewers. I hear people dropping the difficulty in Alan Wake 2, quitting games because the controls aren't good enough, and saying that titles are unplayable when what does that exactly mean? Good morning, Mario, and good morning, Switch fans. Today I'm talking about Batman Arkham Trilogy Collection on Nintendo Switch. It's not perfect, but the slander it's getting across the interwebs is a little bit silly. Yesterday, I made a video dedicated to Arkham Knight, the latest game and the newest title in the trilogy, and today we're dedicating it to Arkham Asylum and the discourse around the game in general. Because I've seen Digital Foundry post something about Arkham Knight, its dropped frame rate, its lag, and that it's unplayable. I do agree with some of what they're saying, but I think we really need to define what unplayable means and be sure that we're not completely just criticizing and crapping on a game that maybe needs more descriptive dialogue. So what's going on, everybody? It's Zach from SwitchForce. Hope you're doing well. Let me know your take in the comments down below. And if you're excited for Batman, because I'm here to tell you, Batman Arkham Asylum is fantastic on Switch. It runs well, it looks fine, it plays good, it's responsive, it's quick, and it has very low loads. It looks just as good as it did back on Xbox 360 because yes, this game came out back on Xbox 360. In no way is it unplayable. Arkham Asylum is the game actually on the cartridge in the trilogy, whereas City and Night are downloadable. And while I wish you could buy them separately because I'd wholeheartedly recommend picking up Arkham Asylum for 20 bucks, the collection as a whole is not unplayable. Okay, Arkham Asylum, the footage you're seeing here, yes, it looks old, okay? These games do look old because they are old. But let's address specifically the unplayability. Does unplayability mean like the game doesn't load? Because if the game doesn't load and crashes and things of that sort, it's unplayable. But if the game has hitches, lag, and issues with frame rate, then I would say it's poorly ported, but I don't know that it's unplayable. I've been playing Arkham Knight, and yes, there are definitely times where it drops to 0 frames per second, which, by all accounts, is unacceptable. And if it was just Arkham Knight as part of the package, maybe I would say that this game is completely unacceptable. But given that there's 3 titles here, and given that the others are not experiencing those frame drops, I don't know that we should just pan this entire package. Also, yeah, it's annoying to drive the Batmobile in Arkham Knight with the stutters, but it's not unplayable. I don't find the Batman Arkham titles to be particularly all that challenging. They're definitely not Dark Souls, they're not even Alan Wake 2, and I'd argue that Spider-Man has bigger combat scenarios that are more intense. This game, Arkham Knight, it's totally beatable even with the frame problems. Is it the most enjoyable way to play the game? No, it's not. Is it the best way to play the game? No, it's not. Does it look better elsewhere? Yes, it does. Although I do think the clarity on the Switch version is decent and solid, and in some scenes clearer than it is on PS4. You can argue what your preference is depending on how you play it, if you're portable, if you're TV, if you're yada yada yada, the PS5, like all that stuff, yes. But we know that the Switch is an underpowered piece of hardware, and nobody's expecting it to run like a charm. Especially not Arkham Knight, which did struggle on PCs when it first released. The Switch struggles with things that didn't struggle, so okay. And I don't want to just excuse the Switch because, look, it should run this fine. If the Switch can run Hogwarts Legacy, clearly the problem is in the porting, the problem is not in the hardware, at least from my perspective. But unplayable? Unplayable. I don't think Arkham Knight is unplayable, even if there are some bugs, some glitches, some lag, and some definite detractors. It's not great, but it's playable. Arkham Asylum, on the other hand, is 100% playable, and I think that's maybe where you should head. If you're interested in buying the Arkham Trilogy at all, Arkham Asylum is probably the game you should play, as I think the confined space of the Asylum is the most exciting package that actually holds up the best. You'd think that's odd because it's the oldest game, Arkham Knight should hold up better, but given the advancements we've had to open worlds since Arkham Knight launched 8 years ago, I actually think Arkham Asylum is the game that holds up the best in the trilogy. Kind of interesting, because it is the smallest game, and it is the one that has the most basic interface and sort of the oldest ideas, but those single-player linear ideas seem to hold up and translate better to modern times. Now, this Switch port of Batman Arkham Collection has been anticipated for a long time. And I don't think it does justice to the Batman franchise, particularly because of how Arkham Knight performs. It's not good, but unplayable, disgusting, terrible. I don't think I can agree with that. I don't think that these games in any way are unplayable on Switch. Any of them. Definitely not Asylum and City. And I would say that you can play Arkham Knight. Because to me, unplayable, like people I guess would say Pokemon is unplayable then, because it's dropping the frame rate so low, but I had a very enjoyable, great fun time with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Now, Digital Foundry says they've experienced some game-breaking bugs. I have not hit any of those yet. So if they are going to show those off in their video next week, then okay, maybe it is game-breaking and unplayable to them. But I just think that we're being a bit harsh on this package here because it's the fun thing to do. These games have rose-colored glasses. Nobody really remembers how remedial they looked because of when they released. And I think a combination of the recent release of Spider-Man 2 being an open-world superhero game that is just like mind-stunning, amazing, blowing, crazy, and this back-to-back does it no favors. It also does not look all that perfect because the Switch is not a system that's going to enhance these games. These aren't a remastered edition. These aren't an enhanced edition. These aren't the +1 deluxe digital. These are just the games as they were on Switch. And unfortunately, Arkham Knight really stinks. Like I said, I don't want to give an excuse for Warner Brothers. I think they should have done a much better job porting this specific title to Switch, but the other two seem good. And unfortunately, you can't buy them a la carte, and to me, that's the biggest bone I have to pick. I wish that this was an a la carte package that I could go to the eShop and individually download Asylum, City, or Night. Well, I can't individually download them, but I can't individually buy them. So I wish I could individually buy Asylum, City, and then I could ditch Night. Because I tell you, that's a really nice $40 package right there. I don't think you need Arkham Knight, and I don't think it probably is worth the $60. So I can agree that right now I would say hold off on spending a full $60 on this collection, but I bet you it will drop soon. Given the negative reaction to Arkham Knight and given the word that's going to go around the internet that this is unplayable and a terrible port, which Arkham Knight does drop horribly, yes, but Asylum and City don't. And Asylum, as you're seeing here, runs great. And it's really fun to play portably, and I love this game. It's one of my favorites of all time. The setup is still good. Yeah, it does feel a little bit behind the times, but like, look, all the Riddler trophy hunting is exquisite. Joker's maniacal command of the storyline is awesome. Killer Croc scenting Batman from the start and eventually swooping him up from down below is great. And the whole island of Arkham Asylum is just a great place to play in, and it's a really fun game. I think Warner Brothers did themselves a disservice by not splitting these games up, because everyone's going to go to the latest, especially since they advertised the Robert Pattinson Batman suit being part of Arkham Knight, specifically calling attention to that game, and that's what everyone's going to check. Everyone expects, I think, Asylum should run on Switch, but when they see Knight doesn't work that great on Switch, I think it's going to poison the entire pool of Rocksteady Batman games. What really needs to happen is that these need to be broken up on the eShop. That would solve just about everything. Also, Rocksteady needs to make a new Batman game. It's been long enough, and I don't think Suicide Squad is going to really win any awards. So Batman could. Arkham Knight will definitely probably win the award for worst Switch port of the year. That should be better, but it's not unplayable. I really think we need to reserve unplayable for a game that like literally does not work or is so poor in combat that you cannot win. The combat is still fairly easy, and I know people don't like to be inconvenienced, so maybe the game is very inconvenient, maybe the game is very annoying to play, maybe the game is very frustrating, but it's not unplayable. So let's be careful when we use those words, because I don't think it's fair to the people that could potentially want to play this, who know, like, okay, if they're getting the Switch version, they know graphics not going to be that great. We now know via video that frame rate is pretty terrible at times in Arkham Knight when you're driving the Batmobile, but when you're in tank mode fighting, it worked perfectly fine for me, and combat worked perfectly fine for me. I did have a 0 frame dropping down into the city as Batman, but